Kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai, and welcome to Mahi Matters, New Zealand's employment market update. On today's show, we're looking at pay transparency. Is it the key to improving pay inequality? Could more open pay conversations close the equity gap across Aotearoa? This week, we're joined by Amy Ross, Director at Work Ethics, to unpack the growing conversation around pay transparency in New Zealand and to find out if opening pay conversations could help close the gender and ethnic pay gaps. Also on today's show, what's luring Kiwis across the ditch, turning the tide on migration? We'll explore our latest job opportunities across New Zealand. And lastly, we'll reveal our new social media insights, where we asked if Kiwis are feeling happy in their current roles. So, recent changes to New Zealand's Equal Pay Act have reignited debate around pay equity and transparency. In May, the government introduced amendments that closed 33 active claims and added much stricter criteria for new ones, including a rule that the workforce must have been at least 70% female for the past decade before a claim can proceed. Supporters argue that these changes provide more structure and clarity, while critics warn that they could make it harder for some groups to raise claims and risk slowing progress on closing the gender pay gap, which currently sits at around 8%. Now, viewers of the show will know that I have strong feelings about this, so let's just say I'm firmly in the concerned camp, but I am keen to hear other perspectives. To explore how pay transparency could play a role in improving pay equity, I'm joined by Amy Ross, Director at Work Ethics. Kia ora, Amy.
Kia ora. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's excellent. Now, to start us off, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and work ethics?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a pay equity and employment relations specialist. I'm also a social worker, qualified and registered, which might seem like a slightly strange mix, but I can assure you they're all underpinned by a deep commitment to social justice. So they do actually go together, even though they don't appear to on the face of it. And so my business, Work Ethics, is really designed to cater to businesses, unions, individuals, organisations who want real world grounded advice on pay equity, healthy employment relations, and how to create a workplace culture which is really healthy and thriving. And I think I bring a unique perspective, having been a unionist, a practicing frontline professional, a senior public servant, and a general activist in my life as well. So, and a business owner now, of course.
Don't forget that one as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely going to be able to provide some good insights there. Let's take a bit of a step back. And what do you think pay transparency actually means in practice? So it's been a hot topic this year. And how common is it already in New Zealand?
Well, pay transparency, there's heaps of elements to pay transparency. There's the piece which has been hotly discussed more recently because there's been an amendment bill by Camilla Bellich to allow employees to talk about their pay to each other, to their colleagues, without fear of repercussion from their employers. So employers can't say, you're not allowed to talk about your pay. That's a key element to pay transparency because it allows employees to freely discuss, oh, I'm in this role and I'm earning this amount, and potentially hear from other colleagues who are in the same position that there's differences and kind of go, I wonder why that is, and have discussions about that. But there's lots of other elements to pay transparency. There's organisations looking at and calculating their gender and ethnic pay gaps and publishing those and looking at action plans or how they intend to address those to ensure that they are doing the best by their employees. And we know that that has huge productivity and retention benefits for employers when they address gender and ethnic pay gaps within their workplace. There's also, pay transparency is also about understanding the why. So, and how does your pay system work? How do I progress? How do I kind of advance in my career? and why are the criteria there? How was I placed when I entered the workforce? Was that on objective criteria based on skill and merit, or was it on the manager's discretion and whatever was available at the time? So there's quite a few pieces of that pay transparency puzzle.
Yeah, excellent. And obviously, we know which side of this debate I sit on, and it all seems very reasonable and good practice there. But of course, this has signaled a bit of a change this year, or some momentum in bringing through those changes. So, you know, a lot of Kiwis will still have in their contracts a confidentiality clause so that they're not allowed to discuss. So this really is a big change. The reverse of that, how common is it in New Zealand? Who's making the early moves to be able to bring more pay transparency into their organisations?
Well, there was a big movement through the public service in the last few years under the previous government towards pay transparency through Kia Toi Poto, the Gender Pay Action Plan, where organisations were required to publish their gender pay gap and have action plans around what they would do around that. So in a way, that was leading the way, and there are a lot of private organisations and champions for change and things like that who have taken proactive steps to look at their gender and ethnic pay gaps and publish that information. So there are organisations out there doing the right thing and taking steps forward. But what we do know, and it's really come to light, I think, quite effectively through Camilla Bellich's bill, is how many people still have that gag clause and what kind of effect it's having. So we've even heard stories through debate around this bill of people talking to a colleague about their pay, uncovering an inequality and actually getting disciplined because they had that gag clause. So they've actually uncovered something which is potentially against the law, which is a gender pay gap, because remember, that's still illegal, and yet they're the ones who end up in a disciplinary process for a breach of their employment agreement. So that has to change. There's no good reason that I can think of to ask your employees to keep their pay secret. The arguments I've heard from employers simply don't make sense. Like, they're saying they don't want sort of jealousy or competitiveness to emerge. But really, if there are clear, tangible, justifiable reasons why you're paying employees differently, let others know what those reasons are so they can strive to achieve. Maybe it's performance, that you've got people who are really highly performing. Then show other people this is what they're doing to deserve that, and this is what you should do in order to get there. And then surely you're driving better performance. And so it makes no sense to me why you would be saying don't talk about it unless you've really got something to hide that's not so great.
Sure. And obviously that's quite a major reason there. Are there any other, I guess, kind of common myths or fears holding employers back from sharing salary information?
I think another one I've kind of heard is that it's commercially sensitive, or it will undermine the commercial position of organisations. But I mean, really, when you strip that back a little bit, what are they really saying? Is that they don't want their competitors potentially to find out about the wages they're paying their employees? And why is that? If they were offering a really good salary, surely they'd want to compete with their competitors in terms of the best staff. So they'd be saying, oh, look, we're paying really well, so we'd like the best staff to come our way. Really, the only reason they'd hide it is because they were trying to compete based on paying their workers less, and they don't want to get that to get out because they don't want their workers to leave. And really, we should be competing based on innovation, quality of service, quality of product, not off who can pay their workers the least. That is a cycle that nobody wins.
Sure. Now, as is very apparent, so pay equity has obviously been a major topic of conversation in New Zealand, and particularly in recent months. How do you see, or perhaps hope to see, this progressing, or please don't let this be the reality, but potentially regressing in the months or years ahead?
Yeah, well, we've already gone hugely backwards with the changes under urgency, which demolished our world-leading pay equity framework. And I mean, that was really extremely heartbreaking for so many women around the country, and men in female-dominated occupations, and heartbreaking for people who spent decades fighting for that equality. And it was eye-opening for everybody else internationally who are busy studying us and going, oh, New Zealand is doing so well. So we've already gone huge backward steps. And if you just think in a pure economic lens, that there have been 33 claims, most of which had invested years and years of work to get to almost concluding. So it's almost the equivalent of doing a PhD, and then asked to bin that work. So that is huge money, resource, time, and effort from people that has gone into building that evidence base, which has now gone in the bin. That makes zero sense. Evidence has been gathered to prove undervaluation. It's just nonsensical, and all of those people are extremely disadvantaged who've had their claims binned. But I don't despair, because the arc of the universe bends towards justice. I still believe that, and I think that we've had some great successful settlements with our previous legislation, and women are rising up. It will have to change back, because there was no logic, there was no scrutiny, there was no just and due process around those changes, and I think people know that that is wrong.
Sure. And how do you think, or what part do you think greater pay transparency can play a part in bridging that gap?
Well, pay transparency is a really key piece of that puzzle, because it starts a cultural change too, for us to become more familiar with talking and asking about not only sharing what we earn, but asking sort of why pay systems operate like they do, how people can develop, what's my career pathway, how can I invest and develop my skills and move forward. And critically, it allows us to bring out from the dark corners all the inequalities and injustice and how pay is set and how people progress, because we know that there is huge injustice in that, particularly in female-dominated occupations, which is always highlighted by a pay equity process. We really need to start talking about pay, so we ensure that everybody gets a fair salary for the work that they're doing. I think everybody would agree that that is what we're wanting. But if we don't talk about it, and we don't talk about pay and how it works and how it operates and why it operates, we can't figure that out and ensure that we're all in this together.
Fantastic. If you want to join the conversation and join the action, be sure to share your thoughts either with us or directly. So the details to get in touch with Amy and the team at Work Ethics will be on your screen as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Some really good, really good things to be thinking about, but to put into action as well. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Okay, so on Mahi Media today, we're looking at what's luring Kiwis across the ditch and what we can do to turn the tide on migration. So Stats NZ has recently confirmed what many had suspected, that New Zealand recorded a net migration loss to Australia in 2024, with tens of thousands of Kiwis heading across the Tasman, drawn by higher wages and a bigger economy. Now, the pull factors are real, but so are the challenges here at home, particularly in our major cities. So take Auckland, for example. It's our primate city and economic engine, so 4 times larger than Wellington or Christchurch, yet its potential is caged in by poor planning and lack of vision, according to recent commentary. Infrastructure and housing pressures make it harder to position Auckland as a truly world-class destination for work and life. Wellington, of course, has faced its own hurdles after public sector cuts, though we're now seeing green shoots of recovery and job ads, which is fantastic to see. And then, of course, there's the South Island, which is quietly becoming a magnet for those chasing affordability, lifestyle, and emerging regional opportunities. So how do we turn the tide? Well, I think it's about playing to our strengths. As I mentioned in a show a couple of weeks ago, we've recently been ranked #1 in the world for work-life balance, and that's something that Australia can't claim. Pair that with, if we could improve with better infrastructure, affordable housing, and real career development opportunities, and we can make our cities not just places to work, but places to thrive. So a top tip for employers, if you're hiring, make flexibility and work-life balance a key part of your pitch. Highlight what makes your workplace unique, whether it's hybrid options, well-being initiatives, or genuine career pathways that lead to stability. In a competitive market, these are factors that can make candidates think twice before booking that one-way flight to Sydney. Let's take a look now at some of the hot jobs on offer right now. Now, that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, it definitely has been a hot topic on pay transparency and equity. So make sure, I'd really love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are. And I'd love to see you back here next week. Join us then. Thanks for joining.